BookTube! So in today's video, I am going to be going through all of the books that I read in January. I can't believe that January is over. It was literally like 2 videos ago when I said, oh my god, I can't believe it's January. And now it's gone and where does the time go? I am going to go through all of the books I read, what rating I gave them, and then give like a little review of each of them. There's only 6, so it shouldn't be too long, but I am also going to go through my statistics. So this year I have started keeping track of my statistics and I have been loving it. So I got this spreadsheet from Becca and the Books. I'll link her video down below so you can check out the video and the spreadsheet if you're interested. You can keep track of the books that you're currently reading, any new releases, what books you've bought. Oh, there's so much, it's so brilliant. But I have been using that to keep track of every book that I own and how many that I've read. So yeah, I'm gonna go through the statistics that it gives me for the month of January. So I have read 6 books and 2,529 pages. Those pages are from the 6 books that I have read and the pages from a book that I'm currently about quarter of the way through. I have listened to no audiobooks this month. I also have an average rating of 4.25, which I think is actually really good. The fact that I've read 6 books and my average rating is 4.25, which means I've read quite a few high books this month. It also tells me that I have acquired 48 books in the month of January. The video that I'm filming after this one is actually going to be my January book haul, so if you're interested to see those 48 books, then stick around for that, subscribe, and yeah, then you'll know what those 48 books are. So out of the 6 books that I read, 5 were fantasy books and 1 was a romance. All of my 6 books were physical books, no ebooks, no audiobooks, all physical. All 6 books were also young adult books. They were all written by cisgender authors and all of the authors were white. So let's get into the books that I actually read. So the first book that I read this year was Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. This one I picked up because I'd heard quite a few recommendations and I'd heard lots of people talking about it, so I wanted to give it a go and I really was not disappointed. I gave this 5 stars. If you did not know, this book is about 2 teenagers called Eleanor and Park in the 80s. It's dual perspective and it tells their story of how they fall in love. And oh, I honestly loved this from start to finish. I knew it was going to be a 5-star read from about like 15 pages in. I was totally in love with this book. I would recommend it to everyone, and this is my one romance that I read. I just found it so heartwarming and the characters were so well told. I loved the plot. I loved how realistic it was in the way that it was told from teenagers' perspective. It was very soppy, very naive. It felt like I was reading a teenage love story and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I haven't read anything else by Rainbow Rowell. If you haven't, I would definitely recommend this and I will be picking up more books by her. The second book that I read wasn't one that I had planned to read. It wasn't in my January TBR, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. This one I picked up just because I really fancied reading it, to be fair. It was just kind of calling out to me. And I absolutely love the spine of this book. It looks amazing on my bookshelf. This book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling told in modern day. It follows Harper and Wren in dual perspective again. And Harper is a young girl from DC, Washington. Is it Washington, DC or DC, Washington? Washington, DC, isn't it? Yeah. I really enjoyed this book. There were a few moments where I was like, no, that is utterly unrealistic and doesn't follow the characters that we have been like shown. It just felt quite unrealistic, but I did enjoy it. It also has disability rep as the main character has cerebral palsy. I found that really interesting as my partner has cerebral palsy, so there were quite a few moments in the book where I was like, is this realistic? Is this realistic? Do you think this is accurate? It was a really interesting read. If you are looking for disability rep and a really realistic disability rep, I don't think I would recommend this, but I do like the fact that it is included, but I don't think it is the best done disability rep that I have ever read. If you want me to get more into that, I can do in a separate video, but for me, as someone who is quite close to someone with cerebral palsy, I just found this had a little bit too much exposition. And yeah, but I did rate this 4 stars as I did really enjoy the plot, and I totally fell in love with the side character Gray. He was my favourite thing about this book, and I am so happy that the second book that follows this, that was released this month, oh well, last month now because it's February. The book that was released in January follows Gray. I'm so happy that I got my hands on it, and they look so good next to each other on my bookshelf because they both have spines like this. The next book I read was The Night Country by Melissa Albert. I really like the floppy format, I love the sprayed edges, and I absolutely love this cover. I pre-ordered this from Waterstones. I received it and then they didn't have the sprayed edges, so I rang them up and I was like, swap it please, I want the sprayed edges. And they were like, okay. So I had to go in and they swapped it, and eventually I got it. And yeah, I hated this book. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm not gonna avoid the point. I hated it. I gave it 2 stars, I believe. Yeah, 2. And the only reason it wasn't 1 is because I loved the sequel. I was so excited to read this. This was my most anticipated book of the month because I loved its sequel, its prequel, which was The Hazelwood. I absolutely adored it. But this one I really didn't like. I predicted all of the plot twists. I knew what was going to happen from the end. I really didn't like the writing. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like the characters. And then when it got to the end and I predicted the plot twist from the beginning, I literally just closed the book and wanted to throw it at the wall. I don't think I'll read anything by Melissa Albert again. So after I read The Night Country, I picked up Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. So this is a book that is very well loved. Everybody talks about this book, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to read it because it just does not sound like my type of book. It's about an assassin and a tournament, so it sounds very action and fighty, and that is not what I look for in a book. It's really not very me. But I picked it up because I'd heard so much about it and I decided I was going to give it a go. I had no expectations to want to finish the series, but it was a box tick book for me. It's a loved book here on BookTube, so I kind of wanted to read it to tick the box and thought that was that. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The plot I wasn't in love with, as I knew I wouldn't, because like I said, assassins, fighting, tournaments isn't my ball game. Ball game? Is that the phrase? It isn't my jam, as I quite often say. So yeah, the main plot is probably what kept this from being 5 stars. But the reason that this book is so high, seeing as I did not enjoy the plot, is the writing. I know everybody raves about Sarah J Maas's writing, and I just didn't listen because I didn't get it until I read this book, and literally like 2 chapters in, I was like, oh my God, she writes like a god. Like, I want more Sarah J Maas in my life. I need more Sarah J Maas in my life. I love her writing. I loved the characters. Kale, honestly, I'm in love with. I just loved how well developed the characters were. I loved how it was written, and I really liked the little side plots that were going on. You could tell that it's building up to a bigger story. There was some sort of subtle hints about fairies in there. There's some subtle hints about a bigger picture, and that is what really kept me reading. I wanted to know the bigger picture. So I loved Throne of Glass. I admit it, you were all right. It's great. So I did say in my January TBR that if I loved Throne of Glass, I would pick up the second book, which is Crown of Midnight. So I did. I picked up Crown of Midnight. And yeah, again, loved it. I loved this book more than the first book, and this was a 5-star read for me again. I loved the characters just as much as I did in the first book, 10 out of 10. Loved the writing, 10 out of 10. And those side plots became a lot more relevant in this book, a lot more went on, and I loved it. There is sort of a plot twist at the end, which I unfortunately already knew from people on BookTube spoiling it without meaning to spoil it. So I already knew that the twist was coming, but I didn't know that I would love it as much as I did. And yeah, there were moments in this book where I was like, oh, what? Like, I did not see that coming. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. So this was a 5-star book for me. So that was the 5 that I aimed to read. I was aiming for 5, and then I picked up Heir of Fire because I did not want to stop reading. Literally, I closed that book and opened this one. So this is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series. This is a little bit of a chunky one, and I loved this book too. The side plots from the 1st book became even more relevant in this book. I don't think I loved the characters as much. That went sort of down to a 9 from a 10, but I did really enjoy this book, and it was a 5-star book again. And then I did start reading the 4th book, which is Queen of Shadows. Yeah, but I have not finished this yet. I'm this far through, so almost halfway. Hopefully I'll finish it today, fingers crossed, because it's Polathon tomorrow. So I am, or as you're watching this, it will be today. So I do have a lot of books to cram into Polathon, so I want to get this finished just so I'm not in the middle of a book. But yes, they are the books that I read in the month of January. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and leave me a comment. And let me know if you've read any of these books or if you are planning on reading them. All of my social medias are down below as well if you want to go and follow me on Twitter. And yeah, I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!